Welcome to Brand with Purpose, a 5-day challenge to help you plan your brand with intention for 2020. The mission of Brand with Purpose is simple. It's a chance to be intentional about how we approach our platform, visibility, and revenue in 2020. No more winging it and hoping for the best. Let's go. Welcome to Package Your Genius. I'm your host, Amanda Miller Littlejohn. I'm a former print journalist turned PR and personal branding pro, and I am here to help high achievers like you bring your genius ideas to life. Whatever gift you have to give the world, I want to be a catalyst for your next genius move. If you're ready to stop overthinking it and start putting yourself out there, you're in the right place. Let's go. Welcome back to day 3 of the Brand with Purpose Challenge. I can't believe we're already 3 days into this challenge. I've been having a ton of fun and I hope you have as well. So today we are going to focus on your visibility planning for 2020. And by visibility, I simply mean once you have decided upon the platform additions that you want to make, so the books you want to write, the programs that you want to add to your platform, you really need to get intentional about thinking about how you're actually going to get in front of your audience so that you can drive them to the things that you've created. So it's not enough to just create these amazing things that are so useful to others, because you end up having great things that no one will hear about if you don't make a plan for how you'll make those things and yourself more visible. And so the visibility vehicles that I have found to be most useful are conferences and speaking engagements, media interviews, social media campaigns, and then obviously platforms like this podcast and my social media challenges, my social media accounts. So one of the things that I set as a goal last year or the beginning of this year was I really wanted to grow my podcast audience in 2019. I was reviewing just the inquiries that were coming in for my business. I was reviewing how people were telling me that they found out about me and what were some of the commonalities between the people who showed interest in my programs and the people who became students and clients, and I got the opportunity to work with them over time. And one of the things that kept showing up when I was doing that evaluation was people were mentioning that they found me through the Package Your Genius podcast. And some people had found me through the Package Your Genius book, which led them to the podcast, or the podcast led them to the book. And after spending time with both, they felt like they were ready to continue working with me in a deeper way. And so for me, that showed me that this podcast, even though I don't feel like I have the most vocal listeners, they're not super social media posting and sharing and tagging and all of that, but they're listening, and I can see that from my analytics and the downloads of the show. So I ended up setting a goal to double my podcast downloads from 2018 to 2019. And for me, that looked like me hitting a certain number of podcast downloads each month. And I remember I had a couple of different strategies that I was using. I changed my podcast host. So I moved everything over from SoundCloud to Podbean. I got the podcast up on Spotify and started to get more, intentional, but also started publishing the episodes on a set schedule. So I was releasing weekly episodes. So I was being more consistent with the publishing as well as the marketing of the podcast. In the first couple months of the year, I did see some growth of the podcast. Like the numbers were definitely up, but they weren't as high as they needed to be for me to be on track to reach this goal of doubling my numbers from last year. So in June, I decided to do the daily podcast challenge. And honestly, I didn't necessarily intentionally set out to use the daily podcast challenge to bolster my downloads. I honestly just wanted to try it because I heard another podcaster who was doing a daily podcast challenge for the whole year. And I thought, okay, if she can publish a podcast episode every single day for a year, certainly I can do it every day for a month. And I remember listening to her podcast, discovering her as a podcaster at an event, and then going to her podcast and loving the fact that I could just binge on episode after episode and really get caught up to who she was and what she believed and what she had to offer me. Shout out to Heather Chauvin, Moms in Control. She is the podcaster I am mentioning or referring to. So anyway, I set out to do this June daily podcast challenge for fun and just to see if I could do it. And in the process, I ended up basically catching up my numbers for the year. So while I hadn't kind of gotten into this monthly cadence of a certain number of downloads every month, when I did this podcast challenge and published an episode every day, I had so many downloads just from the sheer volume of episodes that for the midway point of the year, I suddenly was halfway on track to have doubled. So I essentially had as many downloads at the end of June as I had in the whole year of 2018. And so that was really exciting to me. But that is an example of something that you could actually plan for. I didn't plan for the daily challenge to be something that would drive traffic and help me increase my downloads so that I could reach more people with the podcast. I simply kind of uncovered that on a fluke. But now that I know that it's something that works for that purpose, even though I didn't set out to do it for that purpose, I'm definitely going to plan some more daily challenges like this one, right? Like this isn't a month-long challenge, but it's a 5-day challenge. And I anticipate reaching new people here on Package Your Genius just by virtue of having this 5-day challenge that hopefully you are sharing and talking about with the people in your life who you know love podcasts. So when you think about visibility, or when I think about visibility, having seen a daily podcast challenge work to energize my podcast base and to get people excited about my show, I'm absolutely going to be thinking about what I'm doing in 2020 that requires a little more visibility and buzz. And how can I create some of that buzz by doing a podcast challenge and getting the people who are already plugged into me excited and sharing and spreading the word about my show and spreading the word about whatever it is I want to drive traffic to. So for you, it may not be a daily podcast challenge, but maybe there's a social media campaign that you can do. Maybe you can go live for 5 days on Instagram stories, or go live on Facebook, or do your own Facebook challenge, or even challenge yourself to post something on a theme every Tuesday, or post for 10 days on a certain topic. Just something that gets people's attention because it's different, and to some degree it's a little absurd, and it's definitely not something that you'd want to keep up long term, but it's something that catches people's attention. So one way to get in front of people with visibility is a social media challenge or a podcast challenge. But again, you could also be thinking about the conferences and speaking engagements that may make sense for your brand and for your goals. Also, the media that you want to get in front of. And so when you're thinking about conferences and media especially, you want to be thinking about the times of year that your expertise is most relevant. So for me, when I think about personal branding, the new year is a great time, spring is a great time, and the fall back to school season is also a great time, as well as kind of the holiday. We're gearing up for the new year. all the way through kind of the first few weeks of the year, those are all really relevant times for me to pitch the media, because the media is looking for stories that are in alignment with the new year, with the spring renewal, and with the fall back to school. So what about you? What time of year is your expertise most relevant? And once you've figured that out, you can look for conferences and speaking engagements that are happening around those times of year as well. So for me, January is also typically a time when I will have invitations to speak, because people are wanting to approach that conversation about personal branding within their organizations. For some people, Women's History Month, March is a really great time, because they're really plugged into, or they have a strong message that's geared towards women. So what times of the year would you and your expertise be most relevant for conferences and speaking engagements? You also want to ask yourself, what newsworthy launches do you have coming up? So if you plan to release a new major platform edition like a book, when will it be released? So when will you need to start planning to do your outreach to media, do your outreach for speaking engagements to coincide with the launch of that new platform edition? Also, you want to be thinking about what type of visibility best suits your personality. So for me, I'm kind of intense. And so the idea of a daily podcast challenge for a whole month suits my personality. I like getting things done. I can be really intense for a short period of time. To me, a month is a short period as compared to a year. And I like to talk. And I can talk until the cows come home, right? But your personality may not be suited for a podcast challenge, and that's fine. You need to think about what best suits you. If you want to be on camera and you want to be seen, you feel like you're better when you're talking. If you don't want to be seen, you can try podcasting. If you're good with graphics and video and kind of storytelling online, maybe it is an Instagram story challenge. Maybe it is a writing challenge where you're publishing a new article every week, or sharing some written insight every day. Don't look at me or what I'm doing, or look at other people and what they're doing and get discouraged if you don't feel like you can do exactly what we did or what they did. I want you to think about your strengths, right? That's what branding with purpose is all about. We're thinking about our own competitive advantage and how can we bring our magic to our planning for next year. So what can you do that other people just can't do, right? Like, what can you do faster than they can? Just easier than they can. Lean on that special sauce and that special skill and create a visibility opportunity that's in alignment with your goals, that also is meant to happen around the time of year when you and your expertise is most relevant. So, with all of that said, I definitely hope that you were writing down all of your ideas in the workbook. And if you do not have the workbook for the Brand with Purpose Challenge, go to packageyourgeniusacademy.com to download that now. So I hope you have some great ideas about your visibility planning for next year. I'm super excited to start planning some of the media blitzes and podcast challenges that will align with the different things that I want to promote in 2020. And I hope you are as well. So that's all for day 3. I'll see you in day 4 of the challenge.